Time now for the roundtable. I'm joined by our chief White House correspondent, John Karl, Republican strategist Sarah Fagan, who worked for President George W. Bush, now supporting his brother Jeb, E.J. Dionne from the Washington Post, out with a brand new book, Why the Right Went Wrong, and Republican strategist Kevin Madden, and Congressman Keith Ellison, who's endorsed Bernie Sanders. Welcome to you all. Let's begin with the Republicans. John Karl, I'll ask you what I asked Donald Trump. Is it now a two-person race between Trump and Cruz? Well,
it sure looks like that way, absolutely, in Iowa. But, George, I have to say, when Ted Cruz came out with this New York values attack, it looked like it was a gaffe. Trump had a great moment in the debate. But what's it done since? It has driven everybody back to that interview 20 years ago with Tim Russert, where Donald Trump says he is pro-choice, pro-gays in the military, and does it citing the fact that he is from New York, not from Iowa. It may have been a masterstroke by Ted Cruz.
Do you think, because it's clear now that these guys are going to go at it for the next 2 weeks in Iowa, who's going to get the better of this exchange?
Well, I think the person who may get the better of this exchange is the person who finishes third in New Hampshire. You have to think about these establishment candidates. There are 5 points that separate Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush, and 3 in between, 3 candidates in between, Christie, Kasich, and Cruz. This is so early right now. It feels late, and yes, there was a massive fight going on between Cruz and Trump, but this thing is far from over.
It's definitely far from over. And Kevin Madden, you look at Iowa right now. Marco Rubio in 3rd or 4th place, depending on the polls, but has very high favorables. If these two go at it, Trump and Cruz, is it possible he could rock it up at the end?
I still think that Iowa is probably a race right now between Cruz and Trump. And I think one of the really interesting things, to John's point, is, I expected that they would drop the New York values attack. But the biggest risk for Trump right now is, so far in this race, nobody's been on the attack, and none of the information about him has felt like it's been new. This feels like it's new at a time for a lot of voters that are making up their mind in these last 14 days before the caucuses that the idea of a New York liberal could be their nominee. This would start to work.
That may be true, Keith Ellison, but so far everyone who's tangled with Trump has gone down.
New York liberal, Trump, news to me. Well, let me tell you, I think I have to stand back and say they're all anti-immigrant. They all have tried to divide us based on religion, and I think it bodes well for the Democratic candidate. I support Bernie, but any Democratic candidate who can compare him or herself with these guys, as ugly as their behavior's been, it's a good thing.
Let me bring that over to EJ, because the Republican establishment appears, and you talk to them a lot, you do your reporting, appears to be coming around to the idea that one of these two could really be the nominee and not their first choice.
It's amazing, and I think what it speaks to is the transformation of the Republican Party that I talk about in the book. I think, the party's made promises to conservatives they couldn't keep about shrinking government, rolling back cultural change. A lot of working-class Republicans are mad because they voted for the party, haven't gotten much out of it. Trump is the revenge of those voters. And the party, if you look at the primary electorate, liberals have all left the Republican Party, and moderates are gone. That's why we're talking about Cruz and Trump, and that's why the establishment is so worried.
It's hard to know exactly what the establishment is, Sarah.
Exactly. And a lot of them have gone over to the Tea Party. One thing about New Hampshire, though, that we're not talking about, independents. Independents can pick up a Republican ballot. That's where Kasich has a shot, or Christie, or Bush.
But it's also why New Hampshire may be tailor-made for Trump as well. But certainly put that question to you. As I said, you did work for President George W. Bush. As you talk to your colleagues, your former colleagues, people at the top of the Republican Party, if they're forced to choose between Trump and Cruz, who do they choose?
They would, I think, support Ted. I say to my
I think it's a tough call by them. I think they would rather see Donald Trump.